The invitation came on a Tuesday morning. Linda stood in the kitchen doorway wearing her usual exercise clothes, the expensive kind that look casual but cost more than most people's monthly groceries. She held her phone loosely in one hand. "My parents want us over for dinner Friday," she said. Not asked. Stated. I looked up from my coffee. Black, no sugar, same cup I'd been using for 15 years. The handle had a chip in it. "Both of us?" I asked. She paused, just for a second, but I caught it. "Yes, both of us. They specifically said to bring you." The way she said "you" carried weight, like I was something that needed to be brought, like luggage. "What's the occasion? Does there need to be one?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "They're my parents. We should see them more." We'd been married 23 years. In that time, I could count on two hands how many times her parents specifically requested my presence. Usually Linda went alone. Sometimes she took the kids. I stayed home, supposedly by choice. I took another sip of coffee. "Sure," I said. "Friday works." She looked surprised. Actually surprised, like she'd expected resistance. "Good. 7 o'clock. Wear something nice." She left before I could ask what nice meant in their world versus mine. I sat there for a while after she was gone, staring at the chip in my mug. The kitchen was quiet. Big house, but quiet. The kids were grown now. David was 31, Emma 29. Both lived in the city. Both worked for their grandfather's company, Meridian Holdings. I'd helped build that company. Not in the way people think, not as an employee, not even as a consultant. Officially. I was there at the beginning. Before Linda. Before the marriage. Before any of them knew my name mattered. But I'd stayed quiet. Stayed simple. Drove a 10-year-old sedan. Wore clothes from department stores. Lived in this house that Linda had picked out because it was reasonable for someone in my position. My position. They thought I worked in risk assessment. Technical stuff. Boring stuff. The kind of job that paid okay but never got you invited to the right parties. I'd never corrected them. I finished my coffee and rinsed the cup in the sink. Through the window, I could see the neighbor's gardener working on their lawn. The neighbor was a hedge fund manager. His wife played tennis 4 times a week. They'd lived next door for 8 years and still called me Larry, even though my name was Lawrence. Close enough for them, I guess. Friday came faster than I expected. Linda spent 2 hours getting ready. I spent 10 minutes. Button-down shirt, khakis, the leather shoes I wore to funerals. She looked at me when I came downstairs and something flickered across her face. Disappointment, maybe, or resignation. "That's what you're wearing?" "You said nice. This is nice." "I meant..." She stopped, waved her hand. "Never mind. Let's just go." The drive took 40 minutes. Her parents lived in Asherton Hills, where every house had a gate and every gate had a code. The trees were old money tall. The lawns were country club perfect. The kind of neighborhood where the HOA would fine you if your mailbox was the wrong shade of black. Linda's father, Richard Brennan, had built his house 15 years ago after the company went public. 8,000 square feet, pool and pool house, guest cottage, home theater, the works. We pulled up to the gate. Linda punched in the code without looking. The gate opened slowly, like it was being dramatic on purpose. The driveway curved through landscaping that probably required 3 full-time gardeners. Linda parked in front of the main entrance, not the garage. Guest parking, even though she'd grown up here. I got out and looked up at the house. Stone and glass. Tall windows showing chandelier light. The front door was 12 feet high. Solid wood, probably imported. "Ready?" Linda asked. I nodded. She pressed the doorbell. It played 4 notes. Something classical that I should probably recognize, but didn't. The door opened almost immediately. Richard stood there wearing a cardigan and slacks, looking like he'd just stepped out of a country club catalog. 68 years old and still had a full head of silver hair. He smiled with his mouth, but not his eyes. "Linda, Lawrence, come in." He stepped aside. We entered. The foyer was bigger than most people's living rooms. Marble floors, a staircase that curved up to the second floor like something from a movie. Everything echoed. "Your mother's in the sitting room," Richard said to Linda. Then to me, almost as an afterthought, "Good to see you, Lawrence." We followed him through the house. I'd been here maybe a dozen times over the years, but it always felt like the first time. The kind of place where you're afraid to touch anything. Catherine Brennan sat in the sitting room on a cream-colored sofa that probably cost more than my car. She was 65, but looked 50. Good genes, better surgeons. She wore pearls and a silk blouse and smiled when we walked in. "Darling." She stood and hugged Linda. A real hug, warm and long. Then she turned to me. Lawrence. One word. Flat. She didn't offer a hug. Didn't even offer her hand. I nodded. Catherine. Sit. Richard gestured to the chairs across from the sofa. Can I get you something to drink? Wine? Scotch? Water's fine, I said. Richard's eyebrow twitched, just barely. Water, of course. He poured himself 3 fingers of scotch from a crystal decanter. Linda asked for white wine. Catherine already had a glass. I got my water in a highball glass, sparkling with a lemon slice. We sat. There was a moment of silence, the kind that feels intentional. Catherine spoke first. The house looks lovely, Linda. You've done well with the decorating. Thank you, Mother. Though I did notice the hedges out front could use trimming. Linda's smile tightened. I'll call the landscaper. Good. You know how important curb appeal is. I took a sip of water. Watched. They weren't talking to me. Weren't even looking at me. I was furniture. Richard swirled his scotch. David tells me he's up for the promotion. Linda brightened. Yes, he's worked so hard for it. He has. Smart boy. Gets that from his mother. Richard finally glanced at me. And his grandfather. I said nothing. And Emma? Catherine asked. How's she doing? Wonderful. She's managing the new acquisition team now. Both of them doing so well. Catherine smiled. It's good to see the legacy continuing. The legacy. Meridian Holdings. Richard's empire. Except it wasn't just his. But they didn't know that. I took another sip of water and let them talk. They discussed David's promotion chances, Emma's new apartment, the company's quarterly earnings, the charity gala next month, standard stuff, surface stuff. I was there, but I wasn't there. They'd perfected that over the years, including me without acknowledging me. The master class in polite exclusion. Now, dinner was announced by Maria, the housekeeper who'd worked for the Brennans for 20 years. We moved to the dining room, another cathedral space with a table that could seat 14. 4 place settings clustered at one end. I sat across from Linda. Richard at the head of the table, Catherine to his right. The first course was soup. French onion, I think. I didn't ask. Richard carved into the conversation like he was carving meat. Linda, your mother and I have been discussing some family matters. Linda set down her spoon. What kind of matters? Well, he exchanged a glance with Catherine. It's about the company, about succession planning. You've already named David as VP, Linda said. Isn't that part of it? It is, but there are other considerations. Equity distribution, family trusts, that sort of thing. I kept eating soup, slow, steady spoonfuls. Catherine jumped in. We want to make sure everyone's taken care of. The children, you, even... She paused, looked at me. Everyone. The even hung in the air like smoke. Richard cleared his throat. Lawrence, I want you to know we appreciate everything you've done for this family. Raising the children, supporting Linda, being present. Being present. Like that was my job description. We want to make sure you're secure, Richard continued, comfortable, as we move into this next phase. I set down my spoon, wiped my mouth with a cloth napkin. Secure how? Richard smiled. It was the smile he probably used in boardrooms before delivering bad news. We've prepared something for you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. Cream-colored, expensive paper. He slid it across the table toward me. I stared at it. Didn't touch it. What is this? An offer, Catherine said. A generous one. I picked up the envelope, opened it slowly. Inside was a single page, folded once. I unfolded it. The letterhead was Brennan Family Trust. The language was legal, but clear. A buyout. $5 million. In exchange for signing away any future claims to Linda's inheritance or any interest in Meridian Holdings. There was a second page, a non-disclosure agreement. Standard stuff. Don't talk to the press. Don't disparage the family. Don't contest any future estate decisions. I read it twice, then folded it back up and put it in the envelope. This is interesting, I said. We think it's fair, Richard said. More than fair, actually. It sets you up comfortably for the rest of your life. And all I have to do is sign away any claim to Linda's inheritance. You were never entitled to it in the first place, Catherine said. There was no hostility in her voice. Just fact. Cold, clean fact. The prenuptial agreement you signed 23 years ago was quite clear. I looked at Linda. She was staring at her soup bowl, not at me. "Did you know about this?" I asked her. She didn't look up. "It makes sense, Lawrence. For everyone. For everyone." "Yes." Richard leaned forward. "Look, you're a practical man. You understand numbers. 5 million is nothing to sneeze at. Invested properly, you'd have a very comfortable retirement." "And if I don't sign?" The temperature in the room dropped. Richard's smile stayed fixed. "Then we'd have to explore other options. Messy options, legal options. The prenup is ironclad, but these things can get complicated, expensive, ugly." "And nobody wants that," Catherine added. I looked at the envelope again. $5 million. To go away quietly. To stop being furniture and just become invisible. They were buying me out of my own marriage. I set the envelope down next to my soup bowl. "I'll think about it," I said. Richard's smile faltered. "There's not much to think about, Lawrence." "Still, big decision. I'll need some time." The silence that followed was sharp. Catherine looked at Richard. Richard looked at Linda. Linda still wouldn't look at me. "How much time?" Richard finally asked. "A week." "A week." He sat back in his chair. "Fine. A week. But Lawrence, I want you to understand something. This offer? It's generous because we're being generous. Don't mistake that for weakness." I picked up my spoon again. I wouldn't dream of it. The rest of dinner was strained. They kept talking, trying to pretend everything was normal, but the envelope sat there between us like a bomb. Catherine asked about the hedges again. Richard talked about the gala. Linda pushed food around her plate. I ate slowly, methodically, the soup, the salad, the main course, which was some kind of fish with vegetables I couldn't name, the dessert, chocolate something with raspberry. I ate it all, didn't leave a bite. When dinner ended, Richard stood. "Well, it's been lovely, but Catherine and I have an early morning tomorrow." Translation: get out. We made our way back through the house. Richard walked us to the door. Catherine stayed in the sitting room. At the threshold, Richard put his hand on my shoulder. Heavy, paternal. "Think carefully, Lawrence. This is the smart play." I looked at his hand, then at his face. "I always think carefully, Richard." His hand dropped. Linda and I walked to the car in silence. She didn't say anything until we were halfway home. "You're really going to think about it?" she asked. "Yes?" "It's a good offer, Lawrence." "Is it?" $5 million is a lot of money. I glanced at her. "Is it enough?" She didn't answer. We drove the rest of the way in silence. When we got home, Linda went straight upstairs. I heard the bedroom door close. Not slam, just close, firm and final. I stood in the kitchen and pulled the envelope out of my pocket. Read it again under the overhead light. $5 million. They had no idea. No idea that I was the one who'd structured the original financing for Meridian Holdings 30 years ago. No idea that I'd taken payment in shares instead of cash. No idea that those shares, held through a series of perfectly legal offshore trusts and holding companies, were now worth $15 billion. $15 billion. I was the largest single shareholder in the company. Larger than Richard, larger than the institutional investors, larger than anyone. And nobody knew. I'd kept it quiet for 23 years, stayed in the background, let them think I was small, let them think I was nothing. I'd wanted to see how they'd treat me if they thought I had no power. Now I knew. I folded the letter back into the envelope and set it on the counter. A week, I'd told Richard, but I'd already made my decision. I wasn't signing anything. I was done being furniture. The next morning, I woke up at 5:30. Old habit. Linda was still asleep, curled on her side, facing away from me. The space between us in bed felt wider than it actually was. I got up quietly and went downstairs. Made coffee, same chipped mug, same black, no sugar. The envelope was still on the counter where I'd left it. I picked it up and carried it to my office, a small room at the back of the house that Linda had decorated with cheap furniture from a catalog. My space, she'd called it. Translation: the room nobody cared about. I sat at the desk and turned on the computer. While it booted up, I looked around the office. Bookshelf with technical manuals nobody had touched in years. Filing cabinet with tax returns and warranty information. A window that looked out at the fence between our yard and the neighbors. Boring, forgettable. Exactly what I wanted them to see. The computer finally loaded. I opened an encrypted browser and logged into an account hosted on servers in Switzerland. 3 passwords and a biometric scan later, I was looking at my actual financial picture. Meridian Holdings, ticker symbol MRDH, was trading at $143 per share. I owned 104.8 million shares across 7 different holding structures. The math was simple. $15 billion, give or take a few $100 million depending on the day. Richard thought he owned 60% of the company. On paper, he did, but my shares were buried in institutional holdings, pension funds, and investment vehicles that looked like they belonged to other entities. It had taken careful planning and a lot of lawyers, but it was all completely legal. I'd learned early that the real power wasn't in having money. It was in having money that nobody knew about. I closed the browser and deleted the history out of habit. Then I sat back and thought about Friday night. The envelope. The offer. The way Catherine had said everyone with that pause before looking at me. They thought they were managing a problem. Managing me. I took a sip of coffee and smiled. My phone buzzed. Text from David. Hey, Dad, coffee this week? David. 31 years old. Sharp dresser. Sharper mind. He'd graduated top of his class at Penn, done 2 years at Goldman, then joined Meridian as a junior analyst. Now he was VP of Strategic Development, which meant he spent his days in meetings deciding which companies to acquire and which to dismantle. He looked like Linda. Same dark hair, same careful smile. But he had Richard's eyes, cold and calculating when he thought nobody was watching. I typed back, Sure. When works for you? Tomorrow? That place near the office. 8 a.m.? See you there. I set the phone down. David wanting coffee was unusual. We talked maybe once a month, usually about surface things, sports, weather, how the car was running. But tomorrow was Monday, day after the dinner. That wasn't a coincidence. I spent the rest of the weekend doing normal things, grocery shopping, lawn work. Linda and I barely spoke. She stayed busy with errands and phone calls, mostly to her mother. I could hear snippets of conversation through closed doors. He said he'd think about it. I don't know, Mother. Yes, I understand. Sunday night, she found me in the living room watching a documentary about World War II logistics. Are you really going to drag this out? She asked. I didn't look away from the TV. Drag what out? You know what? The offer. I said I'd think about it. I'm thinking about it. She stood there for a moment, arms crossed. It's a generous offer, Lawrence. You said that already. Because it's true. $5 million. Most people would jump at that. I muted the TV and turned to look at her. Really look at her. Linda was 55, still beautiful, in that maintained way that money makes possible. Good skin, good hair, good everything. She took care of herself. Why do you want me to sign it? I asked. She blinked. What kind of question is that? A simple one. Why do you want me to sign? Because it's the practical thing to do. Because it protects everyone. Including you. Yes, including me. I nodded slowly. And if I don't sign? Her jaw tightened. Then you're being stubborn for no reason. Maybe I have reasons. What reasons? What could you possibly gain by refusing? I turned back to the TV and unmuted it. I'll let you know by Friday. She stood there for another minute, then left. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, sharp and angry. The documentary kept playing. Something about supply chains and railroad logistics. Boring stuff. The kind of details that win wars but never make it into the movies. I watched until it ended, then went to bed. Monday morning, I was at the coffee shop by 7:45. It was one of those modern places with exposed brick and reclaimed wood, where a cup of coffee cost $7 and came with foam art. David walked in at exactly 8, navy suit, crisp white shirt, no tie. He spotted me and smiled, the kind of smile he probably practiced in the mirror. Dad, thanks for meeting me. Of course. He ordered something complicated involving oat milk and extra shots. I had black coffee. We sat at a corner table away from the morning rush. So, David said, wrapping his hands around his cup, how have you been? Good. You? Busy. You know how it is? I didn't, but I nodded anyway. He took a sip of his drink. I heard you had dinner with Grandpa and Grandma Friday. There it was. We did. How'd that go? I shrugged. Fine. Good food. David smiled, but it looked forced. Listen, Dad, I want to talk to you about something. Okay. He leaned forward slightly. Grandpa mentioned they made you an offer, a financial arrangement. They did. And I just want you to know I think it's the right move. For everyone. I took a sip of coffee. Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true. Look, Dad, I love you. You know that. But you have to be realistic here. The company's been in our family for 30 years. Grandpa built it, Mom grew up in it. Emma and I work there. It's our legacy. Your legacy? Yes, ours. And this offer, it recognizes your contribution to the family while also protecting what we've built. My contribution. Yes, you raised us. You supported Mom. That matters. The $5 million, that's recognition of that. I set down my cup. What did Richard tell you? David hesitated. What do you mean? About the offer. What did he tell you? Just that it was fair, that it made sense for everyone. Did he tell you why? Because... David stopped, chose his words carefully. Because the prenup is clear, and because keeping things clean now prevents problems later. Problems? Estate problems, inheritance problems. You know how complicated these things can get. I leaned back in my chair. David, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you know how Meridian was started? He looked confused. What do you mean? The company, the beginning. Do you know how it started? Grandpa founded it in 1995, raised initial capital from investors, built it from the ground up. And you know who those initial investors were? David frowned. Some venture capital firms, I think. Why? Just curious. He studied me for a moment. Dad, what's this about? Nothing. Just trying to understand the legacy you're protecting. The legacy is pretty straightforward. Grandpa had a vision, he executed, the company grew. Now it's worth billions, and we're making sure it stays in the family. In the family? Yes. David's voice hardened slightly. Look, I don't know what you're thinking, but you need to let this go. Sign the agreement. Take the money. Move on. Or what? The question hung there. David's expression shifted. Not angry. Something colder. Or things get complicated, and nobody wants that. I finished my coffee. Thanks for the chat, David. Dad? I'll think about what you said. I stood up. David stayed seated, looking up at me with those Richard eyes. You've got until Friday, he said. I know. I left him there with his oat milk coffee and his navy suit. Outside, the morning air was cold. I walked 3 blocks to where I'd parked my car, a 10-year-old Honda Accord with a dent in the passenger door. Reliable, invisible. I sat in the driver's seat and took out my phone. There was a text from Emma. Lunch this week? Miss you. Emma, 29. Linda's smile, Richard's ambition. She'd joined Meridian right out of business school and worked her way up fast. Now she managed acquisitions, which meant she spent her time tearing apart smaller companies and absorbing the useful pieces. She was better at it than David. I texted back, Wednesday? Perfect, I'll pick the place. I set the phone down and started the car. Both kids, both wanting to talk to me, both suddenly interested in my life. They were coordinating, making sure I understood the message, making sure I signed. I drove home slowly, taking back roads. Linda's car was gone when I got there, out doing something, avoiding me probably. I went to my office and logged back into the Swiss account. This time I went deeper, pulling up documents I hadn't looked at in years. The original Meridian Holdings investment agreement, dated April 1995. 3 primary investors, Richard Brennan, Catherine Brennan, and Lawrence Barrett. That was my name before I changed it, before I met Linda, before I became Lawrence Matthews, the quiet husband. The agreement was complicated, but the core was simple. Richard provided the business plan and initial contacts. Catherine provided family money. I provided the technical infrastructure and the majority of the working capital. In exchange, Richard got operational control, Catherine got social status, and I got shares. Lots of shares. Richard had fought me on it, wanted me to take cash and a small equity stake. But I'd held firm. I wanted the shares. He'd agreed, thinking it didn't matter, thinking the company would probably fail anyway, and shares in a failed company were worthless. But it hadn't failed. It had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. Gone public in 2002, grown steadily, acquired competitors, expanded internationally, and my shares had grown with it. I'd sold some along the way, quietly, through the holding structures, enough to live on, but I'd kept the majority, watching their value multiply. $15 billion. I closed the documents and sat back. Richard didn't know. Catherine didn't know. Linda definitely didn't know. They thought Lawrence Barrett was some investor who'd cashed out decades ago. They didn't know Barrett and Matthews were the same person. I'd made sure of that. Legal name change, new social security number, knew everything. It cost money and required help from people who specialized in making things disappear. But I'd had my reasons. I'd wanted to see what life was like without the power, without the money, without people treating me a certain way because of what I had. I'd wanted to see who Linda really was, and for 23 years, I'd played the role. The quiet husband, the boring guy, the one nobody paid attention to. Now I knew exactly who they all were. My phone buzzed again. Text from Linda. Dinner at club tonight. My mother invited us, 7 p.m. Another dinner, more family time. I texted back, okay. The club. That meant the Asherton Country Club, where Richard and Catherine were members, where the minimum net worth for membership was $25 million and the average was closer to $100. I'd been there exactly 3 times in 23 years. Never as a member, always as Linda's guest. Tonight would be 4. I spent the afternoon doing research, pulling up information on Meridian's current state, recent acquisitions, stock price trends, board member profiles. David was listed as VP Strategic Development, Emma as Director of Integration. Both reported directly to Richard, who was still CEO despite being 68. The board was full of the usual types, retired CEOs, venture capitalists, one former senator, all men over 60, all white, all connected. Richard's kind of people. I kept digging, found some interesting details. The company was planning a major acquisition, a tech firm called Velocity Systems. $2 billion deal, mostly stock. It would be announced in 3 weeks. If it went through, Meridian's stock would jump. My $15 billion would become $18 billion, maybe more. But there was risk. The deal was complicated. Regulatory approval needed. Due diligence still in progress. One call to the right board member. One hint that the largest shareholder had concerns. But I wasn't ready for that yet. I closed the laptop and got ready for dinner. Khakis again, button-down shirt, the leather shoes. Linda came home at 6 and immediately went upstairs to change. She came down at 6:45 wearing a dress and pearls. Ready? She asked. Ready. We drove in silence. The country club was 20 minutes away, all winding roads through expensive neighborhoods. The club itself sat on 200 acres of golf course and forest, with a main building that looked like a mansion from the 1920s. We pulled up to the valet. A kid in a vest took the keys and tried not to look disappointed at the Honda. Inside, the club was all dark wood and leather, oil paintings of old white men on the walls, the kind of place that smelled like money and old cigars. Richard and Catherine were waiting in the dining room at their usual table, the one by the window overlooking the 18th hole. They stood when we approached. Linda. Lawrence. Richard shook my hand. Firm grip, eye contact. All the right moves. We sat. A waiter appeared immediately with menus and water. We've already ordered wine, Catherine said. The Bordeaux. The waiter poured. I got a glass even though I hadn't asked for one. So, Richard said after we'd ordered food, have you had time to think about our discussion? Some? And? I took a sip of wine. Expensive wine. The kind that tastes like money. Still thinking. Richard's smile tightened. Lawrence, I appreciate careful consideration, but at some point you need to make a decision. It's only been 3 days. 3 days is plenty of time to read a 2-page document. It's not the reading, it's the implications. Catherine leaned forward. What implications? It's very straightforward. Is it? Yes. Her voice was patient, like she was explaining something to a child. We're offering you $5 million to clarify your legal position relative to the family estate. You sign, you get the money, everyone's clear on where they stand. And if my position is already clear? Richard set down his wine glass. The prenup is clear, Lawrence. You're entitled to nothing from Linda's inheritance. This offer is pure generosity. Then why make it? The question stopped him. What do you mean? Catherine asked. If I'm entitled to nothing, why offer me $5 million? Why not just let the prenup stand? They exchanged a glance. Richard spoke carefully. Because we want to be fair. Because you've been part of this family for over 20 years. Because it's the right thing to do. And it has nothing to do with wanting me to sign an NDA? Another silence. The NDA is standard, Richard said. It protects the family's privacy. From what? From unnecessary complications. I nodded slowly. Complications like me talking to people about family business. There's no family business to talk about, Catherine said quickly. But yes, privacy is important to us. The food arrived. Steak for Richard, salmon for Catherine and Linda. I'd ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, chicken. We ate in silence for a few minutes. The dining room hummed with quiet conversation from other tables, old money talking to old money. I spoke with David this morning, Richard said finally. He seemed to think you were being reasonable about this. Did he? Yes. He said you were thinking it over, taking it seriously. I am. Good. Richard cut into his steak. And I assume Emma will reach out to you as well. She already did. Good. That's good. It's important that you hear from everyone, that you understand this is a family decision. A family decision where everyone decided except me. Richard looked up. That's not fair. Isn't it? Linda touched my arm. Lawrence, please. I looked at her. She looked tired, stressed. Please what? I asked. Just, please. She pulled her hand back. I finished my chicken. It was dry. Catherine tried to restart the conversation. So, Linda, tell us about the gala next month. Have you picked out a dress? And just like that, we were back to surface things. Linda talked about dresses and decorations. Richard mentioned some business associates who'd be there. Catherine discussed the silent auction items. I sat and listened. Furniture again. When dinner ended, Richard pulled me aside while Linda and Catherine walked ahead. Lawrence, I need you to understand something. His voice was low but firm. This offer expires Friday. If you don't sign by then, we move to other options. What options? Legal options. We have lawyers who specialize in prenuptial enforcement. They can make things very uncomfortable for you. Uncomfortable how? Discovery, depositions, financial audits. They dig into every aspect of your life, every bank account, every transaction, everything. He let that sink in. And I don't think you want that. He continued. Do you? I looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the calculation behind his eyes. The certainty that he held all the cards. No, I said. I don't want that. He smiled. Relaxed slightly. Good. Then we understand each other. We do. Friday, Lawrence. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. He walked away to join Catherine and Linda at the entrance. I stood there for a moment, alone in the dining room. Discovery, financial audits. They were threatening to investigate me. They had no idea what they'd find. I smiled. Friday was 3 days away. Friday morning came with rain. Heavy, persistent rain that turned the streets dark and made the house feel isolated. I was awake before dawn. Linda's side of the bed was empty. I found her asleep in the guest room, still fully dressed, her phone clutched in one hand. I went downstairs and made coffee. The kitchen felt different somehow, like it already belonged to my past. My phone was still off. I turned it on. 43 missed calls, dozens of texts, 3 voicemails. I deleted them all without reading or listening. The deadline was 5 p.m. 8 hours away. I showered and dressed, not the usual khakis and button-down. Today I wore a suit, charcoal gray, custom-tailored, purchased years ago but rarely worn. White shirt, dark tie, leather shoes that actually fit properly. When I came downstairs, Linda was in the kitchen. She stared at me. What are you wearing? A suit. Why? Because today matters. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were red. Her hair wasn't perfect for the first time in years. Lawrence, I'm begging you, don't do this. It's already done. No, it's not. You can still sign. You can still make this right. Make it right for who? For everyone. For the family. I'm not part of the family, remember? That's what the offer was about. Removing me. That's not... She stopped, started again. We can renegotiate. More money, better terms, whatever you want. I don't want money. Then what do you want? I want what I've always wanted. To be seen, to be respected, to matter. You do matter. Do I? Yesterday your father threatened to destroy me if I didn't sign. That's not respect. That's fear. She gripped the counter. What did you show him? Nothing. Not yet. But you're going to. Yes. When? Tomorrow, after the deadline passes. And what happens then? Then everyone knows the truth. She was crying now, actually crying. This will destroy us. Us? There is no us. There hasn't been for years. Maybe there never was. That's not true. Isn't it? You married me thinking I was small, safe, easy to manage. You never wondered if there was more, never cared if there was more. I loved you. Past tense. Interesting. She wiped her eyes. I still love you. Do you? Or do you love the idea of me? The quiet husband who doesn't make waves? The furniture you can ignore until you need it? Stop saying that. Why? It's true. My phone rang. Richard. I answered. Lawrence. His voice was tight, controlled. We need to meet. I don't think that's necessary. I'm making it necessary. The club, 11 a.m., be there. And if I'm not? Then I file paperwork with the court this afternoon. Full financial discovery, every account you have, everything. You're bluffing. Try me. He hung up. Linda was watching me. What did he say? He wants to meet. 11 a.m. at the club. Are you going? Yes. Why? Because I want to see his face when I say no. I grabbed my keys and left. The rain had lightened to a drizzle. I drove through empty streets to the country club. Arrived at 10:45, parked in the main lot, not the guest parking. Inside, the club was quiet. Too early for lunch, too late for breakfast. I asked the host for Richard Brennan. He pointed to a private dining room in the back. I walked through the empty main dining room. My shoes clicked on the hardwood floor. Through the windows, I could see the golf course, gray and wet and deserted. The private dining room door was closed. I opened it. Richard sat at the head of a table that could seat 20. Catherine was to his right. David and Emma sat across from each other, both looking uncomfortable in business clothes. The whole family. Everyone except Linda. Lawrence. Richard gestured to a chair at the far end. Sit. I stayed standing. This is quite the welcoming committee. We're here because you've forced our hand, Catherine said. You've made this situation untenable. I've made it untenable? By refusing a generous offer, by threatening the family, by acting irrationally. I looked at David and Emma. They both avoided my eyes. Did you tell them? I asked Richard. About yesterday, about your threats? I told them you're refusing to be reasonable. That's one way to put it. Richard stood. Lawrence, this ends today, one way or another. You can sign the agreement, take the money, and we all move forward. Or you can refuse, and we take action. What action? Legal action. We'll contest the prenup. We'll audit your finances. We'll investigate every aspect of your life. And you think you'll find something? We know we will. Nobody lives as invisibly as you do without hiding something. David cleared his throat. Dad, maybe we can talk about this. Just you and me. There's nothing to talk about, David. But if we could just understand what you want, I want you to know the truth. Emma spoke up. What truth? I looked at her, at all of them, saw the confusion, the fear, the absolute certainty that they held all the power. The truth about who I am, I said. The truth about how Meridian really started. The truth about who actually owns what? Richard's face darkened. What are you talking about? I'm talking about Lawrence Barrett. The name hit the room like a bomb. Catherine's face went white. That's one of the original investors, from 30 years ago. Yes. Richard was staring at me. You're saying you know Barrett. I'm saying I am Barrett. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. David spoke first. That's not possible. It is. Barrett cashed out decades ago, Richard said. He took his money and disappeared. No, Barrett changed his name, married into the family, and watched. Waited. You're lying. Am I? I pulled out my phone, opened the encrypted browser, pulled up the holding company documentation, turned the screen toward them. Catherine leaned forward, squinted at the screen. Her face changed. Richard, look at this. Richard took the phone. Read. His hands started shaking. This says you own 104.8 million shares of Meridian Holdings, $15 billion at current market price. I'm the largest single shareholder in the company. Emma stood up. This is insane. This can't be real. It's real. My lawyer has all the documentation, original investment agreements signed by me, your grandfather, and your grandmother. 30 years of holding records. Everything legal, everything documented. David was shaking his head. Why? Why would you hide this? Because I wanted to see who you all were when you thought I was nothing. I wanted to see if any of you would respect me for who I was, not what I had. And? Emma asked quietly. And now I know. Richard collapsed back into his chair. He looked old suddenly, smaller. You've been planning this. For 23 years. The marriage, the kids, everything. It was all to get revenge? No. The marriage was real, at first. I loved Linda. I wanted a family. But I also wanted to see if I could be more than my money. And you've decided you can't, Catherine said. Her voice was ice. I've decided you'll never let me be. Richard looked up. What are you going to do? Tomorrow, Saturday morning, my lawyer will file disclosure documents with the SEC. By noon, the world will know I own controlling interest in Meridian Holdings. By Monday, I'll be calling a shareholder meeting. To do what? To replace you as CEO. The words landed like bullets. David stood up. You can't do that. I can. I have the votes. The board won't support it. The board will do what the largest shareholder tells them to do. Emma was crying silently. Dad, why? Why are you doing this? Because your grandfather tried to buy me off, tried to erase me, tried to make me disappear. So this is revenge, Richard said. This is justice. Richard stood slowly, walked toward me, stopped 5 feet away. You'll destroy everything, he said. The company, the family, everything. The company will be fine. Better than fine. I know how to run it. I helped build it. The family won't survive this. The family died when you slid that envelope across the table. Richard's hand balled into a fist. For a moment, I thought he might swing. Part of me wanted him to, but he didn't. Get out, he said quietly. Gladly. I walked to the door, stopped, turned back. One more thing. The deadline is 5 p.m. After that, there's no going back. No negotiation, no compromise. Make sure you all understand that. I left them there, walked through the club, through the lobby, out into the rain. My phone rang before I reached my car. Linda, I answered. They called me, she said. Her voice was shaking. David called. He told me what you said. He told me who you are. And? Is it true? All of it? Yes. You've been Lawrence Barrett this whole time? Yes. And you never told me. I wanted to see if you'd love me without the money. And would I? I got in my car, started it. We'll never know now. I hung up. The drive home took 20 minutes. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still dark, storm clouds moving in from the west. When I got home, Linda's car was gone. So were her clothes. She'd packed while I was at the club, left without saying goodbye. I walked through the empty house, looked at the furniture we'd picked out together, the pictures on the walls, the life we'd built, or the life I'd thought we'd built. My phone buzzed. Text from Barrett, my lawyer. Documents ready. Confirm Saturday timeline. I texted back. Confirmed. 0800 hours. Understood. This is going to be loud. I know. I sat down in the living room and waited. 5 p.m. came and went. No signature, no compromise, no going back. At 5:30, my phone rang. Richard. I let it ring. Voicemail notification. I deleted it without listening. At 6 p.m., Emma texted, Please, Dad, it's not too late. We can fix this. I didn't respond. At 7 p.m., David called. I declined. At 8 p.m., Linda sent a long text. Paragraphs about how I'd destroyed everything, how I'd lied to her, how I'd betrayed the family, how she'd never forgive me. I read it twice, then deleted it. At 9 p.m., I got an email from Richard's lawyer, official notification that they were pursuing legal action, financial discovery, everything Richard had threatened. I forwarded it to Barrett with a note. They're committed. Proceed as planned. He responded, They're going to find everything once they start looking. That's the point. I turned off my phone and went to bed. Tomorrow would be Saturday. Tomorrow would be the day. I slept better than I had in years. Saturday morning, the day everything changed, I woke at 6 a.m. No alarm needed. My body knew. The house was completely empty now. No Linda. No sounds of someone else living their life in the rooms around me. Just silence and space. I made coffee. Same chipped mug, probably the last time. At 7:30, I received an encrypted email from Barrett. Documents filed with SEC at 0700, public within the hour. Media contacts lined up. This is happening. I replied, Good. At 8 a.m., I turned on my phone. It exploded with notifications, calls, texts, emails, all in the last 30 minutes. The news was out. I opened a financial news app. The headline was huge. Mystery shareholder revealed. Lawrence Barrett controls 15B stake in Meridian Holdings. Below that, former investor thought to have exited decades ago emerges as largest shareholder, plans leadership changes. I scrolled through the article. It had everything. My original name, the holding companies, the share count, Barrett's statement on my behalf announcing my intention to call a shareholder meeting, and buried in the third paragraph. Sources indicate Barrett has been living under an assumed name for over 2 decades and is married to the daughter of current CEO Richard Brennan. The reporters had found the connection, faster than I expected. My phone rang. Unknown number, I answered. Mr. Barrett? This is Jennifer Ramos with the Wall Street Journal. Do you have a moment for comment? No. Can you confirm you've been living as Lawrence Matthews? No comment. Can you confirm your relationship to Richard Brennan? I hung up. The phone rang immediately. Another unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, rang again, declined, again, declined. I turned off the phone. The coffee was cold. I drank it anyway. At 9 a.m., I put on another suit, this one navy blue, red tie. I looked at myself in the mirror, barely recognized the man looking back. Not Lawrence anymore. Not quite Lawrence yet. Something in between. I left the house at 9:30, drove downtown. The city felt different today. Like everyone knew. Like everyone was watching. The Brennan Tower parking garage was nearly empty on Saturday. I parked on the executive level. My car looked wrong next to the Mercedes and BMWs and one Bentley. I took the elevator to the 52nd floor. The office was locked. Of course it was. Saturday. I used my phone to call Barrett. I need access to the building. Can you arrange it? Already done. Security has instructions to let you in. You're listed as a board observer as of this morning. How did you manage that? I didn't. The company's bylaws require it once your ownership was disclosed. They had no choice. Good. I hung up and went back to the elevator, down to the lobby. The security guard looked at me differently now, like he'd seen the news, like he knew. Mr. Barrett. He used the name carefully, testing it. I've been instructed to provide you access to the executive floors. Thank you. He handed me a permanent access card. Not a visitor badge, a real card. I took the elevator back up. This time I used the card to access 52. The executive floor, the lights were motion activated. They came on as I walked through. The reception area looked different, empty, less intimidating, just furniture and art and windows. I walked to Richard's office. The door was locked, but my new card opened it. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd seen it Thursday. The boat desk, the awards, the photos. Richard with presidents and governors and celebrities. Richard at company milestones. Richard receiving honors. Richard. I sat in his chair, looked out his windows at the city, at the river, at the empire he thought was his. This view would be mine by Monday. I pulled out my phone and turned it back on. The notifications had multiplied. Now there were hundreds. I scrolled through them, calls from reporters, texts from people I hadn't spoken to in years, emails from lawyers and investors and business associates, but nothing from Linda, nothing from David or Emma, nothing from Richard or Catherine. They were in damage control mode, lawyers and PR people and strategy sessions, trying to figure out how to contain this. They couldn't. At 10:30, the elevator dinged. I stood up, walked to the door of the office. Richard stepped off the elevator. He saw me immediately. Froze. What are you doing here? This is my building now. Get out. I have access. Board observer rights. Check with your lawyers. He pulled out his phone, made a call, listened, his face darkened. They can't deny you access, he said. It wasn't a question. No, they can't. He walked slowly toward me. We stood 10 feet apart in the hallway. Two men who'd known each other for 30 years but had never really met. You did this, he said. You destroyed everything. I revealed the truth. The truth? The truth is you're a liar. You lied to my daughter. You lied to my family. You infiltrated us. I married Linda because I loved her. Bullshit. You married her to get revenge. No, revenge came later, after I saw who you all really were. His hands were shaking. We treated you well. You treated me like furniture. We included you. You tolerated me. What did you expect? You weren't one of us. Because I didn't have money? Because you didn't act like you belonged. I smiled. That was the point. I wanted to see how you'd treat someone you thought was beneath you. And now you've destroyed us to make a point? I haven't destroyed anything. The company's fine, better than fine. The stock price is up 8% since the news broke. He blinked. What? Investors are excited. A mystery shareholder with my background and track record. They see it as a positive. That's impossible. Check your phone. He did. His face went pale. This doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense. The market doesn't care about your feelings. It cares about returns, and they think I'll deliver returns. You'll destroy everything I built. No, I'll fix everything you broke. The board won't support you. The board will do what I tell them. I control 43% of voting shares. I only need 8% more to have absolute control, and I'll get it. From where? From institutional investors who want change. From pension funds who are tired of your conservative strategy. From anyone who wants to see this company reach its potential. Richard leaned against the wall. He looked old, defeated. Why now? Why did you wait so long? Because I wanted to be sure. Wanted to see if any of you would see me, would respect me, would treat me like family. We did. No, you didn't. You offered me $5 million to disappear, like I was a problem, like I was nothing. That was generous. That was insulting. We stood in silence for a moment. What happens now? Richard asked. Now I call a shareholder meeting. Next week, probably. Move to replace you as CEO. And then? And then I run the company the way it should have been run all along. I'll fight you. You'll lose. My lawyers. Your lawyers will tell you the same thing mine already have. I have the votes. I have the law. I have everything. Richard pushed off the wall, walked closer, stopped 3 feet away. You've destroyed this family. You know that? The family destroyed itself. Linda will never forgive you. She already hasn't. The kids won't either. They'll adapt. They're smart. They'll land on their feet. And what about you? You think you'll be happy running this company alone? Hated by everyone? I don't need to be loved. I need to be respected. Respect? Richard laughed. It was an ugly sound. You think this will earn respect? You think people will respect a man who lied to his family for decades? Who betrayed everyone who trusted him? I didn't betray anyone. I was the one who was betrayed, over and over, for 23 years. By loving you? By including you? By offering you millions of dollars? By never seeing me, by treating me like I didn't matter, by assuming I was small? Richard shook his head. You're insane. Maybe. He turned and walked back to the elevator, pressed the button, waited. Before the doors opened, he turned back. This isn't over, Lawrence, or whoever you are. This isn't over. Yes, it is. The elevator doors opened. He stepped in. The doors closed. I stood alone in the hallway. The lights started to dim, the motion sensors losing interest. I walked back to Richard's office, sat in his chair, looked at his view. My view now. My phone buzzed. Text from Barrett. Bloomberg requesting interview. CNBC wants you on Monday morning. WSJ wants exclusive profile. How do you want to handle? I typed back, decline all for now. Focus on shareholder meeting. I want it scheduled for Thursday. Thursday? That's aggressive. I know. Understood. I'll file notice Monday morning. I set the phone down and spun the chair to face the windows. The city spread out below. Millions of people living their lives, working their jobs, building their own empires. None of them knew that today, this morning, everything had changed for one family. One company, one man. But they'd know soon enough. By Monday, this would be the biggest business story of the year. The mystery investor revealed. The family betrayal, the corporate coup. They'd write articles, make podcasts, turn it into case studies for business schools. They'd debate whether I was brilliant or crazy, visionary or vindictive, justified or cruel. I didn't care. I'd spent 23 years being invisible. Now I was visible. And that was enough. Monday morning arrived with clarity. The rain from earlier in the week was gone, replaced by sharp winter sunlight that made the city look clean and new. I woke in a hotel room, downtown, top floor. I'd left the house Sunday afternoon, knowing I couldn't stay there anymore. It was Linda's house now, had always been, really. I ordered breakfast from room service, eggs, toast, coffee, ate while reading the business section. The Meridian story had exploded over the weekend. 3 major articles, 2 editorials, countless blog posts and social media reactions. Most were fascinated, some were critical. A few called me a genius, others called me a sociopath. I was probably somewhere in between. At 9 a.m., I got a call from Barrett. Shareholder meeting scheduled for Thursday at 10 a.m. Notice filed this morning. It's official. Good. Agenda. CEO removal and replacement. Board seat appointments. Standard items for a takeover. Don't call it a takeover. That's what it is. Call it a transition. Sounds better? He laughed. You care about optics now? I care about winning. You've already won. Not until Thursday. After the call, I showered and dressed. Another suit. Black this time. I was developing a collection. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. Hello? Dad. Emma's voice, small and broken. Please, we need to talk. I closed my eyes. Emma. Please, just 10 minutes. Anywhere you want. I don't think that's a good idea. I'm not calling for them. I'm calling for me. I need to understand. Silence stretched between us. The hotel bar, I said finally. Marriott downtown, noon. I'll be there. She hung up. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the phone. This was a mistake. I knew it was a mistake, but she was still my daughter. The morning passed slowly. I tried to work, reviewing documents Barrett had sent about the shareholder meeting, proxy votes, board procedures, the mechanics of corporate change. At 11:45, I went downstairs. The hotel bar was modern and mostly empty. I chose a corner table with a view of the entrance. Emma arrived at exactly noon. She looked different, smaller somehow. She wore jeans and a sweater, not her usual business clothes. Her hair was down, no makeup. She sat across from me without saying hello. A server approached. "What can I get you?" "Water," Emma said. "Same." The server left. We sat in silence. "You look different," Emma finally said. "In the suits, like someone else." "I am someone else." "Are you? Or were you always this person and we just didn't see it?" "Both, probably." She folded her hands on the table. "Mom moved back in with Grandma and Grandpa. Did you know that?" "I assumed." "She cries a lot. I've never seen her cry like that." "I'm sorry." "Are you?" I considered the question. "Yes. I never wanted to hurt her." "But you did." "She hurt me first." Emma's jaw tightened. "By what? By loving you? By giving you a family? By never seeing me? By letting her parents treat me like nothing? By agreeing when they tried to buy me out?" "She thought it was the right thing." "For who?" "For everyone. Everyone except me." The water arrived. Emma took a sip, set it down carefully. "David won't talk to you," she said. "He's really angry." "I know." "Grandpa's a mess. He barely leaves his office, just sits there staring at the wall." "He'll recover." "Will he?" She looked at me. "You're taking everything from him." "I'm taking what was always mine." "The company?" "Yes." "What about his dignity, his legacy, his life's work?" "He'll still have credit for building it. I'm not erasing him. I'm just taking my place." "Your place as what? CEO? King? God?" "As the person who actually made it possible." Emma leaned back. "You really believe that, don't you? You really think you're the hero here?" "I don't think I'm a hero. I just think I'm tired of being invisible." "You were never invisible to me." The words hit harder than I expected. "Wasn't I?" I asked. "When's the last time you asked me about my life, my thoughts, what I wanted?" She started to answer, then stopped. Thought about it. "I don't know." "Exactly. But that doesn't give you the right to destroy everything." "I'm not destroying anything. The company will be fine. Better than fine. I'm not talking about the company. I'm talking about us, our family." "There is no us. There never really was." Her eyes filled with tears. "That's not true, isn't it? You and David work for your grandfather. You live in his world. You follow his rules. I was always outside of that." "Because you chose to be." "No, because you chose it for me." She wiped her eyes. "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to be honest. For once. Did you ever see me as anything more than Mom's quiet husband? Did you ever wonder if there was more to me?" She was quiet for a long time. "No," she finally said. "I didn't. Thank you for being honest. But I should have." She was crying now. "I should have asked. Should have cared more. I'm sorry." The apology caught me off guard. "Emma, I'm sorry I didn't see you. I'm sorry I took you for granted. I'm sorry for all of it. It's too late." "Is it? Is it really too late to fix this?" I wanted to say yes, wanted to hold on to the anger and righteousness. But looking at her, at my daughter crying in a hotel bar, something cracked. "I don't know," I said. "Thursday. The meeting. You're really going through with it?" "Yes." "Will you destroy Grandpa?" "No. He'll stay on the board. He'll keep an office, but he won't be CEO." "And David and I?" "You keep your jobs, unless you quit." "Why would we quit?" "Because I'll be your boss." She processed that. "David will quit. Probably. But I shouldn't?" I looked at her, really looked at her. "That's your choice." "What would you want me to do?" "I'd want you to stay. You're good at what you do. Better than your grandfather knows. You could do more with the right support." "You'd support me?" "If you wanted it." She picked up her water, drank, set it down. I need time to think. Take it. She stood. Dad, for what it's worth, I do love you. I always have. I just didn't show it well. I know. She left. I sat there for a long time after she was gone. The bar filled up with the lunch crowd, business people talking deals, tourists planning their afternoons, normal life continuing while mine transformed. My phone rang. Barrett. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Richard's lawyers filed an emergency motion. They're challenging the shareholder meeting, claiming procedural violations. On what grounds? They claim insufficient notice. They're asking for a delay. Will they get it? Unlikely, but they're making noise, and noise attracts attention. Let them. The more they fight, the guiltier they look. You're sure about that? Positive. I hung up and paid for the water. Left a big tip even though we'd barely touched them. Back in my room, I pulled up news coverage. The story was evolving. New angles emerging. Reporters were digging into Richard's past, finding small scandals, questionable decisions. Nothing major, but enough to chip away at his image. That wasn't my doing. That was just journalism. Once someone becomes a story, everything gets examined. By evening, 3 more board members had called Barrett expressing support for the transition. They didn't use those words, but the meaning was clear. They saw where the power was shifting and wanted to be on the right side. Politics. Corporate politics. The same game played at every level. Tuesday morning, Linda called. I stared at her name on the screen for 3 rings. Answered on the 4th. Lawrence. Linda. We need to talk. About practical things. The house, our finances, the divorce. The word hung there. Divorce. Okay, I said. My lawyer wants to meet. Can you do today? I can do Thursday afternoon. After the meeting. Lawrence. Thursday, Linda. That's when I'm available. She was quiet for a moment. You're really doing this? Yes. You're really going to destroy my father. I'm really going to take what's mine. He'll never forgive you. I don't need his forgiveness. What about mine? The question surprised me. Do you want to forgive me? I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. That makes 2 of us. She hung up. Wednesday arrived like a countdown. 1 day left. Barrett called at 8 a.m. Final vote count. You have 57% of proxies committed. That's overwhelming. Richard? 28%. The rest are abstaining or haven't voted. So it's done. It's done. Tomorrow is just theater. But theater matters, especially in business, especially when you're making a point. I spent Wednesday preparing, reading through the meeting agenda, reviewing my remarks, practicing the moment when I'd stand up and claim what was mine. At 6 p.m., David called. I almost didn't answer, but Emma had called. Maybe David deserved the same chance. Dad. David. I'm calling to tell you that if you go through with this, I'm done. Done with you, done with the family, done with everything. I understand. Do you? Do you understand that you're destroying everything? That people look up to Grandpa? That he built something real? He built something with my money. It was 30 years ago. You cashed out? You left. No, I changed my name. I stayed. I watched. Why? Why would you do that? Because I wanted to see who you all were without the